Hello again, everyone. I'm Ken Kibler, Director of Training and Client Business Support for eTruckBiz. We just hit the top of the hour. The attendee list is growing. So if everybody can sit tight for about a minute while the attendee list levels off, we will get going with the weekly business update. Alrighty, it looks like the attendee list has leveled off. I want to thank everybody for joining us today as we continue to venture into the Network 2.0 process. Once again, I'm Ken Kibler, Director of Training and Client Business Support for eTruckBiz. We will now begin the weekly update with Jeff Walczak.
All right, thanks, Ken. And as always, we need to let you know that eTruckBiz is not endorsed, sponsored, or anything else by FedEx Corporation. And today, as usual, Becca has a couple of announcements for us.
Thank you. So if you are new to our weekly session or our YouTube channel, first of all, welcome. But I wanted to just make everyone aware that eTruckBiz is here to offer business services, consulting, and software. This is to help FedEx service providers become successful, independent business owners. So Network 2.0 is not optional and it is already here. Now we know that there is a lot of change coming our way, the new reality. So there's going to be new dispatch types, tighter service standards, and mounting financial pressure, the widening gap. So this distance between what 2.0 demands and what most contractors are equipped to handle is growing fast. And the only question is not whether to adapt, but whether you have the right system to do it profitably. So what Network 2.0 actually demands from a contractor. So you're going to see more routes and dispatch complexity. A lot of things are going to be changing, part-time shifts, extended windows, require tighter scheduling. And then we're going to need a smarter dispatch strategy than ever before, tighter performance metrics. So there will be less margin for operational error. Standards are tightening and FedEx is watching closely. There's going to have driver management pressure. So this is going to include more hiring, more training, more turnover exposure, and compliance demands that require real expertise, not guesswork. And then, of course, the financial complexity of this all. Your back office demands are growing faster than most contractors' systems can handle, and you need visibility at the dispatch level. So here is your solution, the business growth and support system built for this moment. We will handle, financial management. This is going to be profitability analysis at the dispatch level. We have HR and driver support, that hiring, compliance, retention, first advantage, coordination, that it would be fully managed. Operational consulting, this is going to include route structure, dispatch strategy, AVP, and then the 410 implementation built for your operation. Negotiation guidance, this is huge. We have the expertise to help you with your negotiation process and how you can maximize your revenue. And then, of course, for growth planning, you want revenue management, margin improvement, and exit readiness. So those are all real business strategies. Now, our average client revenue impact, this is going to be over 30,000 or more per year of an improved performance and cost control. So this is one system, one team, all built for you. So what we can do to take off your plate. Now, every hour that you spend on payroll issues or the compliance questions, financial reporting, that is all going to come out to be a non-revenue producing task. So that's going to be 1 hour that's spent on is an hour not spent on your drivers and what's happening in your trucks. And that's what matters most. That's where the money is actually made or lost. So that's what we want you focusing on. Let us take care of the back office financial tracking, HR documentation, and driver file management. But the result is contractors with eTruckBiz support spend more time on the floor, in the trucks, and with their drivers. And that is exactly where your profitability is going to be won or lost. So if you have any questions on that or would like to learn more, you can always schedule a free BGSS information session with me. You can scan the QR code or you can email me, Becca@eTruckBiz.com, and I can answer any questions that you have or set up a session with you that works with your schedule. And then also, if you are in Florida, Jeff will be in Orlando tomorrow, Wednesday, April 29th at 3 p.m. And this is to learn about Network 2.0 information and best practices. We will also be in the Atlanta area the following week. And then after that, May 12th, that's going to be Baltimore. You can scan the QR code right here to register for Orlando, but keep a lookout for any emails or information on the upcoming cities that we will be attending as well.
Okay, thank you, Becca, for that good information. So as we always do, let's look at the volume for the previous week. Looks like pickup stops are flat. It's like pickup packages are flat. Not too much to say about that. They're flat. Delivery volume does look like it's got a little bit of a upward motion there, 2%, 1% on packages. This time of year, that's what happens. The package volume is just flattens out. So that should mean we're doing better on productivity. So what's going on here, Ken?
Looks like a slight increase performance gain got us up to 98.6. Hopefully this week the volume, since it's the end of the month, will continue to climb and we can push back over that Mendoza line and be at 100 stops per dispatch.
All right. So if anything, we want to be watching what's going on there. Now, for those of you, Becca mentioned it earlier, for those of you that have already ventured into Network 2.0 land, you know that it's just lack of a better way of saying this, it's no joke. It's hard enough to coordinate it, to get things done when they need to get done, to get drivers to do what you want them to do, not what they want to do. There is something that seems to be getting overlooked and trying to make everything happen. It's you got to make everything happen and somehow make dispatches that are profitable, right? That's what we're here for. That's how the business works. It works by having money to make the wheels go around. One of the things we see is people do a bunch of things to get it done, and they think that's great, but it's not how it goes in the 2.0 world, folks. It's not just getting done and getting paid like it used to be. So it's up to you to make this work, right? So let's go ahead and tell you where things are at. There's a very aggressive schedule right now. We're just a few days from hundreds of terminals implementing 2.0. I think it's Saturday, Monday, next week.
Yeah, Saturday. Yeah, Saturday's the stand up for the new contracts, and then I think the official volume will start to roll in Monday and Tuesday.
So, and then some of you already have it, but there's a big, huge chunk between now and the end of 27 where FedEx will be an integrated surface network across all the United States. So they're doing it, for those of you that might be new to the space here, they're doing it to realize savings. They say they're going to save $2 billion a year doing this, and according to Wall Street, they are, because that stock price is up 60-70% in the last 6 months. In the end, they're going to optimize 900 stations, and they're going to close 500 overlapping express stations. There's only about 2 of them been closed so far, so there's a lot of action going to happen here very, very shortly. Okay, now, as we just said, there's one thing that we need to focus on here in the 2.0 world as far as making a buck, right? To make the contracting business work in Network 2.0, there's one metric that needs to be measured and understood above all. And no, it's not service. Yes, you have to provide service. Yes, you have to get 1030s delivered by 1030, noons by noon, and everything else that's either already or going to happen. That's just table stakes, but we have to understand what something called dispatch yield is. So your dispatch yield is the revenue produced by a dispatch minus what it cost to do that dispatch. The difference is some people would call it profit, but that's profit would be after you go through everything else in your business. A dispatch yield is just what the revenue got generated by that truck, that dispatch, and what it costs to put that dispatch on the road. And folks, we're going to probably beat this dead horse over and over and over, but it's going to be the most critical business metric that you're going to need to track. I know a lot of you track certain things. That's great, but we're going to have to watch that, what's called dispatch yield, right?
It's easy to say, hey, man, I got to protect service. I got to protect service, because most CSPs are very, very good at providing service. But if you're doing it at a cost and doing it, just throwing dispatches at it, that you can go to the unprofitable side of the business in a hurry, and it doesn't take long. So as Jeff says, knowing what the yield is on every dispatch becomes critical every day.
So it used to kind of be that it was automatic. You load up a truck, let it go, hopefully it gets everything off, and everything's great, and made a little bit of money on that. It's not like that anymore, folks. I mean, we can tell you, and if there's some of the folks on, if there's anybody on here that wants to tell their story about this, who's already in 2.0, you might want to, well, maybe we'll open up your mic little bit later to let you tell the story, but like again, it's not necessarily automatic anymore. If you used to have a dispatch that did 120 stops and for some reason it's only doing 100 now because you got to get your time definites done and the same day on calls done, it makes a big difference between a profit and loss. Now, there's some folks who, and there's some of you on here, I've seen the names. There's a couple of you on here that are doing very well. In 2.0, we have some folks up over 18% margins on up to almost 25%, one of you. The average contractor, as far as we can tell right now, hovers in the 10 to 15% margin range. And then there's some other folks that just struggle. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. We have a tool for you. And Becca mentioned the business growth and support system program. And in that program, in that system is the Budget IQ program. And one of the things that you get in the Budget IQ program is a look at that day's or the previous day's revenue, expenses, dispatch yield, what the percentage was, all your settlement broke down. But most importantly, if you can see it on here, maybe you can't, but most importantly, you can see each individual dispatch, what the driver did, what the revenue generated was, what it actually cost for that to pay that driver, what the other costs for that dispatch were. So you can figure out on a per dispatch basis what that dispatch yield was. Tremendously important. It is the business now. Can I maximize every single dispatch? Okay, because dispatches aren't like they used to be. Now, all the drivers are doing very specialized things. So we really got to watch that dispatch yield. Okay, now it's great, Jeff, but what do we do about it? How do we maximize our dispatch yield? Well, there are some things that people are doing that, let's just talk about this, right? The AVP program, alternative vehicle program. And for those of you that are new on here, that's where you don't necessarily put packages in a delivery van of some sort. You put them in a minivan or a car or whatever. You put them in, you get them out there and you deliver them in a different way. That program is not necessarily built for Network 2.0 volume. It's really designed to take pressure off of peak volume, maybe some residential areas that it makes some sort of sense, a heavy residential area. Maybe you could put some stuff on a AVP or some sort of tight area, tight neighborhoods, but you got to watch the dispatch yield on those stops. On paper, it looks real good. Looks like they're cheaper than regular dispatches, and they are, but in practice, and what we're trying to tell you is what we've seen is people using it. It can be financially dangerous when you deploy AVPs incorrectly. So most contractors, so what people do is they'll have, and you guys, Ken and Bob, you may want to jump in here, but people will have stops, 10:30s, noon, something. They think, well, you know what? Let me just take those off the regular vans and put them in this minivan, whatever. So folks will put 10, 15, 20 stops on an AVP. Maybe they take some other stops off the other trucks, but you don't want to take incrementally profitable stops off of your regular delivery vans because
Yeah, correct. We do see customers utilize them differently. We've got one customer with two CSAs. One CSA is heavy on the 10:30s and one is heavy on the noons. Well, they're adding some other stuff to it, but they still have to maintain that overall stops per dispatch because that is what your contractors figured at. Because so you still have to generate that type of volume, and you can take a profitable route that might do 140 stops, and you just pull the 20 noon delivery commitments off of it. Well, you've just taken 20 times $4, five, might keep it easy. I just took $100 of revenue off of that truck. If I don't add any more to that truck, I've just depleted my profit off of that truck. So, that's what we're seeing.
Operationally and from a service standpoint, great. Everybody makes service, but what we're doing is we're putting something that seems like we're more worried about the logistics than we are the financial aspect of what's going on. And you say, well, yeah, you have to be because FedEx will terminate my contract unless I get their service. That's right. But we're seeing, just let me say it the way it is. We're seeing people go out of business faster when they get into 2.0 because if they handle it the wrong way, you run out of money. So AVPs have their own, used correctly, it's okay, but people don't necessarily think about the financial aspects of AVPs. There's a AVP financial test. Where are those stops coming from? That's what Ken was saying. Where are those stops coming from that you're putting on those AVPs? Are they incremental? Are they extra stops that you wouldn't otherwise have with a good dispatch, or are you taking them off your good dispatches, right? Are you covering enough cost with what you put on an AVP? Some people think they are, but until they kind of figure it out, say, whoa, wait a minute. That AVP cost me more than I thought it was. The stem mileage impact, stem miles are bad, however you want to look at it. Does it make sense to pay another vehicle another set of stem miles? That's basically what you're doing. And then Ken was also talking about driver productivity. Okay, we got 10:30s off, but it took somebody an hour and a half to do it. That's not productive enough, right, to make any money. AVPs, be very, 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 very careful.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, and two, the network 2.0, everybody is getting to the point where everyone's going to be having it. So the excuse of my drivers don't want to do that. So, do the right thing. Put it on your drivers if you can. If you're using AVPs and you're only putting 30, 40 stops on, you're not going to make any money. You've got to have 100 plus stops on an AVP before you're going to make money. Because if it's me, that's when I can directly control the cost for that AVP. I can say I want it at 20%, where we say, you want to keep your revenue at 45, your wage to revenue at 45%. Well, you can come in your AVP, and if you can set it at 20, then maybe it does make sense. But again, like Ken said, don't take stops off a profitable van and make it unprofitable. That's all I got.
Okay. Yep. Just be careful with those AVPs, right? Now, a tool that does work pretty good is part-time drivers, right? FedEx Express, the Express side of the house, built pretty much most of Express using tons and tons of part-timers. And I think maybe in some places they have more part-timers than they do full-timers. But part-timers, a way to think about part-timers is having distinct shifts, right? FedEx Ground. CSPs have access to the same lever and most underuse it. Part-timers give you the ability to add capacity for different needs. Let's put it that way. You can add capacity without adding vehicles. That's good because you're utilizing that resource more than you otherwise would. Having part-timers is just an incremental cost, right? Vehicle cost is already sunk. The incremental cost is just the cost of the driver. You're not buying another truck to do that. And then, it's a good way. It has to be managed, right? That's going to be tough. Got to watch what you're doing. You can't necessarily use part-timers if you're sending your trucks out 50 more miles away from the terminal. That's not going to necessarily work because you're going to spend it doesn't work in every situation, but it's not a bad way to look at it.
Your part-timers, it's a resource no one's using. Someone may only want to work, 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then if you can, maybe you find somebody in the afternoon and you can keep that truck out there full time. Have them do, some early deliveries, your 10:30s, and then do some pickups on the way in. And then you get the next person come in and they take the truck back out. Maybe that person can only work in the afternoon, someone can only work in the mornings. But it's definitely an untapped resource that we don't use on this side of the business.
Go now, Bob.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I think the biggest factor here is what are my stem miles? And then can I optimize that truck in the morning, and can I optimize the use of that truck in the afternoon? So there was a good comment on here. It says guy currently operates 2 CSAs, one's rural, one's a hybrid, and they've tried just about everything and in each operation. But basically what he says, one size doesn't fit all because of the unique characteristics in each CSA. You've got unique customers, you got unique times, you got, as I said, the one customer's got a lot of 12 o'clocks in one CSA and they got a lot of 10:30s in the other CSA. So they are different. As Jeff pointed out, you have flexibility. That's the biggest thing that CSPs have compared to the competition is the flexibility to schedule and manage your labor. So take advantage of it, but try different things. If you do throw a dispatch at it, then you got to evaluate it and don't stick with it if it's not profitable.
Okay. So part-timers is something to consider for sure. It doesn't work in all situations. We're not saying everybody needs to do it, but something to think about, right? Now, the next thing, I'll just put it up there. The old 410 schedule. This is what your pals in the brown trucks do.
Yeah, the 410s is to reduce overtime and maximize the use of a truck while making you the CSP of choice in the building because every driver gets 3 days off. And when done properly, basically every 6 week, the driver's days off will fall on the weekend and they'll end up with not just a 3 day weekend, they'll end up with a 4 day weekend. And so you become the CSP of choice. If they had 500 stops in that you wanted them to do in that 5 day week, guess what? They still have to do 500 stops in a 4 day week. So now I've got to be able to get that work onto the truck. Can I do it before they leave? Hopefully. If not, I think Jeff will work into that.
You want to say anything about 410s, Bob?
If you got turnover problems, someone's working 5 and 6 days a week, they learn how to live on 5. Someone's working 4 days a week. Are they going to give up 25% of their income for the week? Yeah. I don't think mom would be happy. She'd say, no, you're getting to work today.
It does address attendance issues.
For sure. I'd say this. A lot of times I always ask this question of folks and they start telling me, well, I can't fit enough on the trucks. Okay. You ever gone by a Walmart parking lot or someplace and seen 3 or 4 brown trucks butted up against each other at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon? What are they doing? Smoke break?
Nope.
More than likely, what that is one truck brought out a bunch of stops for 2 or 3 other trucks. They can transfer from one truck to 2 or 3 other ones, and then guess what those trucks are doing for another 2, 3 hours or more that afternoon? They're going to go out there and deliver more packages. Just watch. A lot of you have already seen this before. They'll do it that way, or sometimes they stage packages in some place. So, and I, as the ex-loss prevention guy,
not a big fan, are you?
Not a big fan of this, but you could send a bulk truck or something and unload it, put it in a little mini storage or someplace that you find, and have folks come. Instead of meeting in the parking lot, maybe they just come by when they can, go pick up the other packages that they now have room for and go deliver them. It just depends on the area. It just depends on all kinds of logistics and whatnot. But sometimes that works. But the point is to get enough work out to those folks so they can be, if you're doing a 410, you need to get that much productivity out of those dispatches, right? You can't do a 410 and then let everybody come back at noon. Doesn't work.
Also,
and make sure you got the right size trucks.
Yep.
You got to have the right size trucks. If you just run a P1200, run a P1200, run a P1000. Get rid of these darn cutaways. They're junk.
Also saw last week, hadn't seen it in a while, is the pull behind trailers. So if you don't want to run that bigger truck, could you put a big bulk stop on that pull behind trailer or some other shuttle stop, and maybe the other drivers meet somewhere and pull out of that pull behind trailer as well.
And if you're considering 410s, and this is, you don't just snap your fingers and make 410s happen. Ken and Bob have helped a lot of folks implement 410 schedules in their operation. That there's a process to that. You don't just do that. First you got to get the driver buy-in. Then you're gonna have to get you a whole bunch more drivers, because guess what? The guy going out leaving the building at 9 and getting back at 1, guess who's not going to want to do 410s? I'm guessing it's that guy. He doesn't want to do that. It's probably going to turn him over. Either that or make him a part-timer. He can go out there, and part-time that's what he's doing to you anyway. You're paying for him full day, and he's coming back at 1 o'clock. Anyway, okay. So there's that. As the guys already said, drivers love 3-day weekends and the 4-day every now and then, whenever that comes up. Of course, it saves on turnover when you get the 410s is the way to go. If you can figure out how to make that work in your operation, the 410s is a really good way to go. Get your time definites off early, get your same day on calls handled with the same truck that's already out there. That's the way to do that. All right, what else? Implementation is hard, but we can help you. Guys can help you.
Yeah, and I think Jeff, you don't throw it all at the wall at once. You might start with a work group. So if I've got 15 routes, I might start it with five, and and work it in that way.
So the big thing with 2.0, folks, is there's different ways to think about dispatching differently. Some are good, some aren't so good, but maybe in certain situations they're okay. There are some good ways to think about this. One thing's for sure, it's not just load up the trucks and when you get it done, you get it come back. That doesn't happen anymore, folks. We have to get past that, but we have to know what we're doing. We have to watch the money part of what we're doing, not necessarily just getting the 1030s and whatever else done. Some folks are struggling hard with that. Some are doing fine. And a lot of people have the question, well, if I'm going to get more packages and stops, are they going to pay me more? Or am I going to make more? The answer is you can if you handle it the right way. Okay. It can be done.
Yeah, if you're making money on a per stop basis, you're going to have the opportunity to do more stops, so you should make more money. If you're losing money on a per stop basis and you do more stops, you got the opportunity to lose a lot more money.
Yeah, it's kind of both ways here. For those that are making more, that have good operations, that have control of what's going on in the trucks, they do fine. They do actually, they're doing better than they used to. Those that can't control, don't even know what's going on in their trucks, get ready to exit. What did we say? Prepare to exit or whatever he said.
Yeah, Jeff makes a great point there. It doesn't mean that they didn't struggle, but they knew their numbers before. They tried some stuff. It might not have worked. They tried another thing. It worked. But what did they always keep in mind? They knew their numbers and they knew that they had to make a profit on every stop. And several of those people went back through negotiation. And guess what? The first time they requested negotiation, their renegotiation, they might not have got it, but they stayed very persistent and then finally got FedEx to listen. Why did FedEx listen? They knew their numbers. They presented their numbers. Not just, I can't make any money. That doesn't do any good. Why can't you make money? What were your costs before? What are your costs now? So,
All right. So I don't
And
know, Ken.
they're,
Go ahead, Bob.
not all routes are profitable. You're going to have some that, that barely break even if it's a rural area, but that doesn't mean you can't make money. That means you need to take your in town and you need to load them up. And if you have to push them out further to the country, then by all means, push them out there, because you've got to take advantage of getting at least 7.5 to 8 hours of work on those loads out of those routes. If they're working 5.5, 6 hours, that's when you want to go to the 4-10 schedule to get those extra hours. But you got to take advantage of the routes that you can make money on. And it's not called taking advantage of the driver by any means. If they're only working 5 hours, it's called taking advantage of not losing that yield.
yeah, each driver is paid for the work that they do. Some drivers do more driving. Some drivers do more packages, but they are getting paid for their work that they perform. Like I said, sometimes that work is driving, sometimes it's delivering more stops. But you can't hide a poor driver on an in-town route. If that route's got to do 150 stops, you got to have a driver who has the ability to do 150 stops. Anybody can drive a truck 55 miles per hour, though. So,
hey, quick story here. I'm working with a client, helping with their FRO every night, and just found out that they've got one of their drivers. He's always, grumpy and never happy. He's 63 years old. And he's doing 120 stops a day. 120 plus stops a day. He's 63, and your team can't do that. Come on, they can do it. He's doing 120 stops a day. 63 years old. It can be done. It's up to you.
if you look at what UPS drivers do, if you look in the rural routes, there isn't a guy under 45 on a rural route. So that they bid on those, and the young guys get the stops in town. It's the best way to maximize your workforce. Keep trying. Use the flexibility. Maybe it's an APB. Maybe it's part-timers. Maybe it's a combination of both. I think that, like I said, this comment from Matt was perfect. What works in one CSA may not work in another CSA, but keep trying different things, but try them long enough. Just because you try it one day and it doesn't work, that may have been resistance, or it might not have worked for a different reason rather than your plan wasn't right. Does not look like we have any questions. If you're in the area where we are traveling, please, I'd encourage you to head to those meetings. Jeff has a lot of insight, and I think you'll find those sessions very valuable. We're going to continue to talk about this Network 2.0 over the next couple weeks, because if you're not involved with it yet, it's coming to a station near you soon. So if we don't talk to you before next Tuesday, please have a safe and profitable week. Thank you very much.